Okay, now that we've looked at the concept of absolutism versus constitutionalism, we looked at how Spain had somewhat of a foundation of absolutism. We understand the basic idea of the absolutist state. We looked at the rise of bureaucracy, the rise of military, and the concept of divine right of kings. We're going to actually look at France and see how absolutism really took hold in France as our best case study, and it's perhaps the greatest absolutist state. So we have to go back to the wars of religion. Most historians, the author McKay included, put the foundation of absolute state in the Bourbon dynasty, beginning with Henry IV. And McKay clearly says that Henry IV is the person that lays the foundation for the growth of state power. He decreases taxes but increases tariffs on certain goods. That allows him to be popular in the sense that he's decreasing taxes, but he is able to bring in more money because France, unlike Spain, is engaging more in commerce. They're engaging more in the commercial revolution, and there's certainly more money to be had there. The Edict of Nantes is also an example of how he exercised absolute power, because a lot of historians look at the Edict of Nantes and say, hey, here's a guy that basically is placed at the head of the French Catholic Church, former Protestant who takes on Catholicism, but he exercises political authority. And what he does is much like what the politiques were all about. He's going in there and he's creating peace in France by regulating religion and through the Edict of Nantes and allowing Protestants to exist in France. That is showing his power over religion. And that kind of goes with the thinking of absolutism, that they have full control of everything that goes in their state, including the religion. And so he's denying the Pope's power to have a say fully in the French Catholic Church. That he's saying that it's in religion in France, it's okay to be a Huguenot, it's okay to be a Protestant in certain cities. He also holds on the power to appoint French clergy. So if we look at absolutism as being about the reduction of checks on the king's power, he's certainly removing that check on his that religious check on his power, and he's usurped that, and he's taken that over. But when really looking at absolutism, it's going to really begin with the Louis. Louis XIII, Louis XIV is going to be the greatest of absolutist kings, and then we're going to go Louis XV, of course. Louis XVI reigning over the French Revolution. Louis XIII ascends to the throne. However, he was young, so he needed a regent when he ascended to the throne. His mother, Marie de Medici, served as that regent. However, she appointed Cardinal Richelieu in 1624 to the Council of Ministers, and by 1626 he was the first minister. Essentially, Richelieu becomes the effective regent and the effective ruler there. Sorry about point number 5. It appears to be covered up. Let me make sure that it's that you can see it on your copy of the notes, because if you can't, oh yes, you can see it on your copy of the notes. You just won't be able to see it here. Let me make sure, see if I can fix that. It doesn't appear that I'll be able to fix it and keep the recording, but that's okay. You have it in your notes. One of the interesting features of Cardinal Richelieu is he really is a politician first. With the title of cardinal, you think of him as a religious person, but as we really learned in this class, just because you're part of the clergy and you have a religious title certainly doesn't mean you're deeply religious. And Richelieu is a politician. He's a savvy politician, and he has his chief goal to make the monarchy as powerful as possible. So he really takes on that job as being first minister. And so a lot of historians say that French absolutism is really based on the Richelieu model. And Richelieu's model was to remove the greatest check on the king's power, at least to reduce its effective control, and that's the nobility. So he sought to find ways to lessen the nobility's control over the Bourbon kings, Louis XIII. So Richelieu, what he did was he had to involve himself in the building of the bureaucracy. So he uses royal attendants to collect information, to deliver orders. They were the robe nobility. He's part of the making of nobles. So he makes a lot of nobles, appoints them to positions. These are people that get noble title, although they haven't inherited it from noble landowners or the aristocracy, but they fill the ranks of his government, and they help impose the will of the crown on the people, and they help make sure to collect taxes, and make sure his orders are followed. And they're loyal to the crown because that's who they owe their position to. Richelieu also started the idea of unity through faith, and attacked the Huguenots. So we're going to see Richelieu is the first to start drawing back on the Edict of Nantes, seeing value in religious unity. However, the difference here is he sees value in religious Catholic unity, but Gallican Catholic, the French Catholic Church, because the head of the French Catholic Church is the king. And so to follow French Catholicism is to follow the king. He interpreted the Huguenots as being against the king because they don't follow the same religion. We certainly saw that in the wars of religion. And so what he does is he attacks Huguenot cities. He destroys the fortifications around Huguenot cities. They're not allowed to have walls. He weakens the Protestant nobility. Although he allows Protestantism to still worship, he removes him as a possible threat against the king. And so their cities are completely unprotected. So as the military grows, the king can enforce his will over those cities. Richelieu also said about the foreign policy, the destruction of the Habsburgs. For the Bourbons, the Habsburgs are the greatest threat. So if the goal is to make the Bourbon dynasty one of the strongest dynasties in Europe, you certainly have to look at their neighbors, the Habsburgs, who, since Charles V, had been the most powerful monarchy in Europe. And so he wants to find a way to use his foreign policy to weaken the Habsburgs. Certainly, we're going to see this in the 30 Years' War. He gets involved with the 30 Years' War. Even though he's Catholic, he supports the Protestant side because the Catholic League is on the side of the Habsburgs. And if the Catholic League loses, the Habsburgs lose. And so for him, it's find a way to destroy the Habsburgs to fight against them. Let's see. So point number 9. Where the interests of the state are concerned, God absolves actions which, if privately committed, would be a crime. And that that quote from Richelieu is linked back to that concept of divine right. If it's done by the state, God allows for some unethical or immoral action to be done to justify those causes. Kind of a Machiavellian look. When Louis XIII comes of age, of course, he becomes king. He rules in his own right. And then his son, Louis XIV, who becomes the ultimate absolutist ruler, he takes the throne. But again, he takes the throne as a young boy king. It needs a regent to rule for him. In this case, the regent that was chosen for him is Cardinal Mazarin. A student of Richelieu and somebody who wanted to continue Richelieu's policies of making the Bourbon dynasty the most powerful dynasty in France, but obviously, but the most powerful monarchy in Europe. To expand those concepts of absolutism. The key event for this period, as you read in your book, is the Fronde. This was a huge uprising of peasants. Even nobility across Spain. This was due to the actions taken to raise money for war with Spain. They needed to fund their military. And what it did is it began with the robe nobility and it spread to the sword nobility. And we basically see in the Fronde is a revolution that doesn't start at the bottom, but rather starts at the top with the nobility. And so for Mazarin, the Fronde is seen as a civil war, the nobility attacking the monarchy. And if the nobility is this largest check on the king's power, this is the ultimate expression of that. And Mazarin comes out of this with the ideal that strong leadership and strong monarchy needs to rule, and the only way that a strong monarchy and leader can rule is when the nobility has no real effective political power. And so his policies are going to come as a way of destroying that political power. we could see the Fronde and the robed nobilities come out of the parliaments, and this attack on the king's authority. So where does this all end up? You've read greatly about the Fronde in your book, so we'll kind of sum up the main features here. The reign of King Louis XIV is going to culminate when he comes of age, and he's going to have the longest in European history. Some people will confuse this with Queen Victoria or Queen Elizabeth, but in fact Louis XIV's reign is the longest. As you can see, he rules from 1643 to 1715. People were born, lived, and died under his reign in France, and he wholeheartedly believes in the concept of his divine right to rule. And he becomes the model absolutist monarch that even other absolute monarchs in Europe want to model. He's known throughout Europe and throughout France as the Sun King, and his symbol is the sun, as if everything that he touches, like the light of the sun, is his. In fact, it's Louis XIV that famously said, "I am the state." And that statement of "I am the state" really sums up absolutism. The state of France is Louis XIV, and Louis XIV is the state of France. And that is what it's about. He's the sovereign. He's the person in power. He's the person in control. And in reality, he has the final say on all issues, and his orders are to be followed. And by the time Louis XIV rules, between the techniques of Mazarin and Richelieu, that has now become a possibility. France has a large army. France has a large bureaucracy that is loyal to the king, that exercises his rule, and we're actually going to see how Louis XIV is going to pacify the nobility, and that's perhaps a great word to describe what he does. He truly pacifies the nobility. So, under Louis XIV's system of absolutism, we are going to pick up on this in the next section of this video lecture looking at absolutism. We're going to examine how he was able to keep the nobility in order, how he was able to exercise his rules, and what are some of the changes that he does. And we're going to highlight the revocation of the Edict of Nantes and the Edict of Fontainebleau of 1685. We'll pick up in just a minute.